Hey guys, this is Kyle at ProjectionHub, and I am here to answer a very commonly asked question that we hear almost all the time. And in cases where someone's not asking it, it's a mistake I think they could be avoiding or they aren't thinking about it. So real quick, I mentioned my name is Kyle. I lead the business plan writing services at ProjectionHub, and I have done that for about 5 years. And before that, I was an SBA lender for about 7 years. And so, I'm working with people all the time to produce and prepare business plans for, startups or acquisitions or expansions, most generally for people who are going through the SBA process, or that's the plan. Question I get asked all the time, or a mistake or a wrong assumption people make sometimes, is when is the right time to actually create the business plan? Now, there are a lot of times where I have left money on the table, or I've actually turned people away because they were prepared or ready to jump into that and invest in that, but I don't think that the time is right. And so this is a question that can save you a lot of time, can save you a lot of money in some cases. Now, for a person who's out there hearing this and thinking about why wouldn't I just write my own business plan? That is absolutely an option. Something I encourage people to do often. And if you're one of those people who's like, why wouldn't you just write your business plan before you do anything just to figure out if it's a right fit? I agree with that to an extent. I think now, no matter what, if you've not prepared the formal business plan, you should have at least gone through the practice of writing a bunch of notes, doing some research, getting some things down on paper so that you can actually see the plan kind of forming before you decide to move forward. But what I'm talking about is the formal, official business plan, the one you're going to hand over to a lender. They're going to review it. They're going to go through underwriting. That version of it, when does that need to be made? So a lot of people, it's not necessarily second nature for them, or maybe it's intimidating to do all the components or the research and put that whole document together. And so it's something they often wait to do until much, much later in the process, which is not a problem. So in a lot of cases, a lot of people were just wondering what order are the steps they're supposed to take in the process. And I think it largely depends on what kind of feedback you have received from a lender. Now, if you're a startup versus an expansion versus an acquisition, depending upon the nature of your business, are there leases involved? There's so many different variables that I think can change maybe when you have the green light to do that. So the easiest answer is probably whenever your lender asks you for it is when you need to have it done. But, a lot of people want to have it prepared before then. And so I think the right answer, though, is you need to have received positive feedback from a lender that there is a decent shot that this loan is possible. So, acquisitions and expansions, it's a little bit easier to see that writing on the wall. You can see the financial documents, you can see the performance of the business, you can have a dialogue with lenders, you can start to get their interest levels on that. So in those types of projects, it's a little bit more of a formality, especially in an expansion. But in an acquisition, it is required. It's not necessarily just a formality, but the business plan is not going to be the make or break difference that the underwriting is waiting for. A lot of that's going to be based upon the analysis of the financial documents, the personal financial situation of an applicant. Whereas a startup, you pretty much have the business plan and the projections, and you have their personal situation. That's about all you're going off of when you're a lender. And so it's very, very crucial to have that put together. So in a lot of cases where people, especially startups, reach out to us for help putting together the business plan and they're ready to just jump into it, a lot of times our first question to them is, have you applied for an SBA loan yet? Have you had a conversation with a lender yet? Have you had gotten any feedback from one? Do you have a lender lined up? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, which is not a problem. I'm not telling everybody that's out there that has a business idea to just go apply for a loan. That's not what I'm telling you should do. But I do think if you've done some research, if you've put some notes down on paper, it's more than just a thought that popped into your head. Doesn't have to be formally written out yet. I would encourage you to have a conversation with a lender first. Most lenders who even remotely could be interested in working on your project, especially in the case of a startup, they should be offering or providing you a term sheet. If a lender is not willing to even give you a term sheet, which essentially outlines what the structure of a loan could be. It's not a pre-approval, it's not a guarantee, it's non-binding, but it just gives you the outlines of what the term of the loan would look like. That is a step in the right direction. If a lender would have no interest in working in your loan application or doesn't think it would be eligible or anything like that, they're not going to even waste your time on giving you that. They're probably just going to give you that feedback up front. So that should be your first sign, is have you had a promising conversation with a lender? Have they given you a term sheet? Oftentimes, if a lender is interested, they're probably going to have wanted to look into or ask you questions about your personal financial situation and maybe even your credit situation. situation. If they haven't even looked into that or asked you about that yet, I probably wouldn't take their feedback seriously yet, because startups are largely going to be based off of your personal situation and then the materials you provide after that. So there's going to be some minimum expectations when it comes to that personally. So my advice would be to, have you thought about this for a while? What steps have you taken to do some research, do some notes, compile those things? Again, it does not need to be formal, it doesn't need to be organized, needs to be enough to kind of validate your thoughts that this is an idea worth pursuing, that you would like to move forward with that, and financing is going to be required. Then it probably is time to have a conversation with a lender, or even potentially with a broker or someone, a connection to those lenders, to be prepared for that, to start to get that initial feedback. Because writing a full-fledged business plan takes time. Takes a lot of energy. And if you're paying someone like me to help you do that, it's not always going to be cheap either, right? So I always want to encourage people, pursuing feedback on if you think there's even a decent shot of getting approved for an SBA loan first is probably what I would recommend. Now, there's a few more micro steps in there that could be different between lenders. So let's say you do get that positive feedback, you could jump in and do the business plan then. Oftentimes we think putting together the projections first is probably a next best step. Do the numbers make sense? The accurate professional numbers, do they still make sense on paper? In an acquisition, there's probably some additional feedback you want to get first too. So, have you and the lender come to terms on what the price is going to look like? Are you in official due diligence? There's some other different signals there that, give you that feedback on when is the right time to move forward with something like a business plan. So, you may be sitting out there, let's say you're planning to start a business, you're going to want to do SBA, and you're kind of caught in this, well, I don't know if I really want to spend time or money doing this if I don't know if I have a decent shot getting approved for financing. 2 recommendations for you. 1, we offer a free SBA review. It really is a free SBA review. I'm not trying to sell you anything at this point. If we do a free SBA review for you and we think there's some ways to help, obviously we're going to propose that to you, but this is going to give you unbiased feedback from an expert and just giving you an idea of you might have a real shot here, or here's some types of programs you might want to go look into, or here's some recommendations on things you can improve. But the whole thing of that is structured to kind of give you that initial feedback. The second thing you could do, if you prefer to just go the route of looking for lenders on your own, is I would reach out to lenders that have some sort of track record in working with businesses like yourself. So, you could have a conversation with your home lender, but I think that that's good for practice, but I don't necessarily think it's going to necessarily be the right person for you. This is a free tool. You can check it out. I'll link it down below. This is just taking publicly available SBA loan data, putting it into a nice little filterable tool, but you could just filter by, let's go to, I'm in Indiana. So I'm going to say I want to see in Indiana. I'm going to go to my type of business. Let's say I want to open up a car wash, and I'm going to change the business age, and I'm going to say, let's do new business or startup is what I want to see. And so now I can see in the last just handful of years, 5 years, it's a pretty small list of the types of lenders who are willing to make an SBA loan to a startup car wash in Indiana. So that isn't meant to scare you. It's just meant to, I would probably have a conversation with some of these lenders before just walking into my home bank, because if the lenders who have done it don't give me some initial positive feedback in that conversation, I'm probably going to be skeptical about whether or not I wanted to pursue that option further anymore or not. So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded way to say it's going to depend on what kind of feedback you've received from a lender. Definitely go ahead, make notes, do research, do all some of that initial stuff you need to give you the confidence that you decide you want to move forward. If you're one of those people who like to just fully write out business plans and all that stuff to be totally prepared, there's nothing wrong with doing that. This goes more to those people who are just they're caught between deciding when they want to do the formal business plan versus maybe wait longer. And this would be the route I would go. Check into some initial conversations with the lenders that make sense. You don't have to submit a formal application yet. If they're requiring a full polished business plan before they'll even look at your application, I would just move on and have a conversation with a different lender until you can get some honest feedback on the odds of them actually looking into your application based off of your personal financial situation and things like that. So check out the free SBA review if you want some of that feedback without having to go to a bank. That's the whole point of that process. We'll give you that feedback before you even have to have a conversation with a lender. And yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions. support@ProjectionHub.com. You can leave a comment down below or questions down below, and we'll get back to you there. But yeah, best of luck, and reach out if you have questions. Thanks.